Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mary Kratz, EVP for the Interoperability Institute, an affiliate organization of the Michigan Health Information Network, joined today for this presentation by our Product Services Manager, Stephanie Arnston.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
So we're here today to talk about interoperability. This definition provided by the Health Information Management Systems Society provides us with a nice underpinning for today's discussion. Interoperability, that ability to exchange data across disparate information systems, devices, or applications, and doing all of that in a coordinated manner across organizational boundaries. Most importantly, how do we do that with an appropriate governance and legal framework with the goals of optimizing health for individuals and populations? Most notably, with the current COVID pandemic outbreak, the need for interoperability has become evident across the entire community of healthcare, across whole states and whole countries. Next slide, please. So a lot is happening around interoperability. In addition to the immediate public health needs, there is new legislation that has passed. The 21st Century Cures Act was released and identifies key regulatory responsibilities for all actors across the health sector to enable interoperability for their systems. Standards development organizations, health information networks, payers, providers, every stakeholder within the healthcare industry is engaged in compliance with these new regulations. Next slide, please. So the Interoperability Institute was initiated as an affiliate organization of the Michigan Health Information Network. We have three underlying scopes within our mission. The first is that our research and development team has built and enabled a product called Interoperability Land. Interoperability Land is a simulation of a healthcare ecosystem. It provides, hosted on an AWS cloud platform, 12 servers that represent different organizations within a healthcare ecosystem, a handful of payer, provider organizations, a lab, a pharmacy, and a health information network. This simulation environment provides a sandbox where we can learn, we can fail, we can learn again, and we can bring forward solutions that work in real world scenarios. So it provides us with that first path from development to production systems. In a short while, Stephanie will be providing a demonstration of this product. In addition, the Interoperability Institute mission furthers that simulation environment and those learning activities into a coordinated event called a connectathon. Many folks in the healthcare industry are familiar with connectathons and hackathons. Our focus is a little different in that we really enable these events to be true training events to bring real world solutions to the table and bringing together community as to how we enable the building and the implementation of those solutions. The third then is that many stakeholders across the industry talk about enabling an next generation health IT workforce. The Interoperability Institute has a very robust workforce program, and that is the third pillar of our mission. Next slide, please. So Amazon Web Services via our MSP Cloudticity has been a key and instrumental partner in enabling our platform, our technology platform for the Interoperability Institute. The first piece of this is that we really think big. We think across the activities that are happening within Michigan and the Michigan Health Information Network. How do we go from very small scale, just within an innovative company that we're working with, to scale up statewide, to enable and participate in standards development around use cases? And then how do we scale that to multi-state or a national level quickly and with minimal time to market? That's really been the enabler that AWS has brought for the Interoperability Institute. The other notion, if stakeholders on this call are familiar, is the notion of fail fast, fail often, and learn. So the environment provided by AWS allows us with a very, very rapid prototype environment where we're able to spin up resources, experiment, iterate, promote to scale if it works, or to deprovision, to learn, to move to the next iteration and provision up solutions via the cloud infrastructure rapidly. And this has really, really enabled our development team. The third, of course, is cybersecurity. So we are HITRUST compliant, as many and all stakeholders in the healthcare sector are. Of course, there are numerous security certifications and security controls that we are able to inherit from the AWS cloud services. This really enables both a secure infrastructure and expedites our time to production. So we really love that AWS has provided strong support via our MSP of Cloudticity, constantly updating with new features, keeping us on that leading edge so that we can rapidly prototype and integrate the best platform solution, not just for the Interoperability Institute and our R&D mission, but being able to transition those over to the Michigan Health Information Network and our production services. Next slide, please. So at this point, I am going to hand over to my associate Stephanie Arnston to provide a demonstration of our simulation environment, Interoperability Land. Stephanie?
Thank you, Mary. As Mary mentioned, Interoperability Land was developed and it is developed as a cloud-hosted platform for testing technologies and open standards. It's a place where organizations can come to learn, test, build, and even fail, all in a safe environment. There's no protected health information within the environment, but instead we have highly realistic synthetic patient data. So MiHIN realized early on that setting up and tearing down FHIR servers were cumbersome, expensive to host on our own, and had a little less value. Using AWS's cloud services through our MSP Cloudticity, MiHIN was able to take our existing knowledge of the need for FHIR servers, synthetic data, and our real-world knowledge of the healthcare ecosystems and marry that into creating IOL, or Interoperability Land, within the AWS cloud. Making this transition to the AWS cloud and creating IOL not only meant that it was more scalable, but also highly cost optimized. There are essentially two different kinds of synthetic data living in IOL. The first is a set of synthetic data we have built with a tool we created called PatientGen. This is a module framework based on Cynthia that can generate and control the progression of diseases from the onset through symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment. This was done by using a Monte Carlo simulation technique, which is used to age a population of simulated patients through a series of iterations guided by the various probability distributions contained within its configuration. These simulations go through aging each member of the population at the same rate. It essentially rolls the dice, which determines their next health state, and they progress through a series of healthcare encounters that determine what their outcomes will be. Each iteration is focused on primary care encounters, hospitalizations, and during each encounter, the treatment events are recorded that emulate clinically relevant treatment scenarios appropriate to their medical conditions. The healthcare data is then populated into the Interoperability Land ecosystem of vendor-aligned FHIR servers with associated synthetic data available for queries. PatientGen currently has 237 disease modules to create care path iterations. The second set of data listed here are our persona data. These are handcrafted, more bespoke synthetic records. Unlike PatientGen, where the disease progression is a roll of a dice, personas, we design and handcraft a story which allows us to have the full creative control of the disease treatments and care. So instead of that roll of the dice, we are generating and creating these stories as we want to see them produced. The persona library is where you find key details about the persona, such as which use cases they support, a short description of their background, current diagnoses, a picture, and a breakdown of what type of resources their story offers. Next are the FHIR servers. We have single organizations, such as hospitals or health plans. Then we have our multi-organization network, or ring, which we like to call it. This contains multiple organizations, such as hospitals, health plans, pharmacies, and a health information network that are connected in that synthetic data is mapped across each, just like it would be in the real world. All of this is wrapped around a shared legal and governance framework, which makes it pretty easy to share data and test within the IOL platform. And we will now go into a demo so that we can show you some of the features.
Once you log into Interoperability Land, you will be taken to your home screen. From here, you can see a navigation bar on the left that contains a list of all your current sandboxes and the libraries that are available, which we'll get into in a little bit. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you have a drop-down menu that contains your account settings, frequently asked questions, and a logout feature. If we go into account settings, that tells you all of your important information on your account and also gives you the availability to delete your account if needed. If we go back to the home screen, just by clicking on the logo at the top, we can go into our sandbox, and you can either enter that from this tile here or clicking on the menu on the left-hand side. You can see here that I am logged into our MiHIN demo account and that we have one sandbox created in this organization. If I click on the sandbox, it takes me to the pilot interoperability test beds, or pits, that we have stood up. Every ring has 12 pits. You can see here that each tile represents a pit. We have 5 EHRs, 2 pharmacies, and 4 payers. We also have a HIN, or a Health Information Network pit, that emulates MiHIN. If we go back up and click on one, we'll click on 5 Lakes Health System. You see an overview of the pit, including a link to the FHIR server. The username, password, and basic authentication credentials are here as well. If we go ahead and click on the link, it takes us right to that FHIR server. And you can see that this pit contains the following resources here on the left. There's approximately 3,500 procedures, 1,500 plus observations, and 400 patients. If we click on patient, it's taken to where we can do a query. This is a drop-down menu of all the items that you can query. And if we go ahead and query deceased patients, you see here that 20 of the 401 patients are considered deceased in this particular pit. Let's go ahead and choose one to look at. The query then pulls the response back in JSON format. There's the raw message. If you look closely, you see some of the demographic data of this patient. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see a narrative that this patient is Virgil Morales Matthews, living on Lake Street in Calumet, Michigan. Going back into Interoperability Land, if you go to the capability statement, the JSON resource pulls up here. And then if we go into Smart App, this is where we can connect a Smart App to IOL for testing purposes. So we're going to go ahead and do that by clicking on Register a New App. And we're going to call this one the U.S. Standard We need a redirect URI, so I have that up already. That would be this right here. So we're going to go ahead and highlight this. Put that in and say OK. And this gives us the details for how to link the app. So we have our client ID here. You can see the redirect URI here, and that we registered it just now. I go ahead and copy that client ID and go back into the death certificate app. And if I go back to the overview and copy the link, now going back into our Smart App, we paste the link in, and at the end we need to add FHIR, FHIR, and hit the connect button. We are now connected from this Smart App into IOL. And if we do a search of our patient that we searched in IOL, you see that Virgil Morales Matthews, the patient we looked at in the FHIR server, and another patient with the same name come up. And if we choose Virgil, Virgil's information is pulled over from the FHIR server of IOL and populated now into this particular Smart App. At the top here is the demographical information. You see his address that we looked at in Calumet, Michigan. And if we go to cause of death, there are tabs that show the condition, procedures, any testing that was completed, and any medications, which in this case appear to be none, that the patient had done or was taking within that 5 Lakes Health System fire pit that we connected this app to. This app was created to assist medical examiners in discovering the cause of death on a patient, which they may or may not have access to records, details like this. So this allows them to search into the records that they may not otherwise have access to. Going back into Interoperability Land, we will take a look at our library set, starting with our persona library. You see here we have 2 personas listed in this demo environment. Our personas are bespoke synthetic records. This allows us to humanize the synthetic records, which unlike patient gen, where the disease progression is a roll of the dice, we actually handcraft the story and design of each persona and have full creative control over the disease, treatment, and the care. Personas allow us to tell the story we want to tell. We create the data to support the storyline, and that data is available in this library. Trudy, for example, is a 10-year-old unvaccinated measles case, and her persona supports the following use cases. It gets into a long bio of her story, as well as future facts of interest and the current use cases again. If we look over here at the resource summary, these are all of the resources that her persona has within it. And if you click on each of these, it'll tell you exactly which pits her resources are in. That allows you to not have to search through every single pit looking for her. As we go back to the persona library, you can add any persona to any of your sandboxes. So merely clicking the drop-down menu, highlighting this, and click Add Persona, and that will go directly into your FHIR ring. Next, we'll take a look at the API library. This is our third-party API that are connected to Interoperability Land. The tile here is much like the page that shows all of our pits. If you click on that, it gives you a brief overview, much like the persona library does. Then a longer overview, and then two choices to either view the documentation or to sign up for the developer sandbox. If you click on that, it'll take you right into the blue button API documentation website. For a future release, the IOL team is working towards expanding this API library to contain more than just a link to the web page. However, to stand these sandboxes up within IOL so they have their own space. On top of that, we are looking to connect sandbox to sandbox within IOL. Currently, an organization within IOL can only connect with the servers contained in our platform, but it is our hope that they will be able to connect to other users within IOL. For example, if Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan has a FHIR ring and Priority Health has a FHIR ring, we would like them to be able to connect to one another's sandbox and do testing. Next and last is our code sample library. This is a place for us to put code examples for users to expand on their knowledge. For example, this particular set of code shows how to connect a FHIR server in Interoperability Land to a smart app. And again, much like the API library, you can view the documentation and code, or you can download the code. We are continuously growing out each of our library sets. So if you know of anyone who would like to stand up their API or a code sample within IOL, please let us know. We're also expanding on our personas on a daily basis. If you would like to sponsor the build of a persona, please reach out to us. We have sponsorship opportunities available. This is what our listing looks like in the AWS Marketplace. And it makes it very simple for customers to go in and purchase by either having the link or simply going into the AWS Marketplace and doing a search for interoperability or Interoperability Land or many other keywords that will link them to our product. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about Interoperability Land. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at contact us at interoperabilityinstitute.org, or you can reach directly out to Mary Kraft or Stephanie Arnson.
All right, that was the demo of the IOL environment. Our interoperability events that Mary talked about are interopathons. We take the hackathon and connectathon approach, and we've converted that into what we call an interopathon. This is where, unlike a hackathon and a connectathon, we focus on real-world implementation and creating solutions around real-world problems. And it's here that organizations can work to plan for regulatory compliance and standards compliance moving forward. So for these events, we do use our Interoperability Land platform. On the left, you can see what a single ring looks like. It was the tiles that were shown. It shows all of those, the pharmacies, the health systems, the health plans, and then the state HIN connected in the middle. For our environment, for our events, we take that environment and we replicate it across teams so that each team has essentially their own version of IOL. They're all the same when they begin. However, each team has their own version to play with, test with, and they can't see what the other team's working on, and what they do doesn't affect the other team's efforts as well. We'll turn it back over to Mary.
So to conclude, I just wanted to briefly mention our Early Career Opportunity Program. Who is going to build the next generation health IT workforce? The Michigan Health Information Network has over a decade of experience, and really the reason that Interoperability Land, the simulation environment with synthetic data, was created, because when we started, we would put up environments, try to test, do proof of concepts, and it was, you go first. And then the next organization would say, no, 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 you go first, because we were trying to exchange real data in real time. And what we discovered was that a simulated environment that we could make available to any stakeholder, simple swipe on AWS Marketplace to make that available, could enable not only the building of the next generation health IT workforce, but real world solution for all of our organizations. So we have a very robust program. We work with universities across 25 different areas. The program currently seats 80 student interns, and we explore models for how we can enable that next generation health IT workforce with both public and private partners. Next slide, please. So to conclude, feel free to contact us. We appreciate your time today to take a look at our simulation sandbox environment, Interoperability Land, to look at how we've enabled synthetic data, both as data packs and also as personas. Folks that we interact with within our community are looking for that sandbox environment to be able to enable their standards compliance. Specifically, the current environment is very focused on hosting an HL7 FHIR environment over the AWS infrastructure. We've also seen healthcare simulation environments enabling a number of academic training programs that are currently teaching APIs. And for that academic faculty to have to put up servers, have it hosted in AWS, generate synthetic data, that's a pretty heavy lift. So they're pretty excited to have this offering available on the AWS Marketplace. And then finally, an invitation to the community at large to join us in enabling real-world solutions. Thank you for your time today. I hope that you found it informative for your efforts.